Tech workers of Reddit, what is a dirty secret about the AI industry that the general public doesn't realize? Story 1. Google make around $250 billion per year from controlling nearly all of the online advertising market. OpenAI need to recoup $1.5 trillion, $1,500 billion, just to break even on their hardware investment costs. Their current revenue is just $13 billion per year. Answer, I think this is the key point. The technology is useful, but companies are only charging end users a tiny fraction of what it actually costs to deliver it. The cost-benefit analysis will completely change once these companies actually need to turn a profit. The good news is, I think that will recalibrate a bunch of AI will replace all human workers doomsposting, but it will also be a disruptive event for a lot of companies that are leaning heavily on AI tools and using them to deliver value. Story 2. That most people don't understand what the fudge AI is, even tech people. AI is a very broad category. Everyone automatically assumes it is the Mad Libs style LLM AI. However, AI learning models have been around for a long time and do a variety of things. Things like your spam filter, predictive text, or your nav system's traffic avoidance. These are all variations of AI in the category of machine learning. These are tools which don't take jobs. They make our lives easier. Then there are AI machine learning models that do take jobs, but actually do so much better than a person can do. Like ones that examine components for defects. They can identify things people may miss far quicker. This allows for better quality and safer products. Answer, I really do wish we could make this distinction clearer. I'm an artist. You can probably guess my particular opinion on generative AI. But there are also AI models that can quickly screen for cancer, can detect minute changes in data that no human could catch as fast. Hell, my dentist has a neat algorithm now that uses your x-rays to detect where your jaw nerves are for easier injections and detection of issues. Gen AI is slop, pure and simple. It's elaborate pattern guessing. And because humans don't always follow set patterns, it means the calculations will never be 100 accurate. Story 3. Lots of companies waste huge amounts of money using AI to solve problems that would be far easier to solve without AI, just so their execs can say, we use AI too to the market. Genuine organizational use cases where AI is the best of all available solutions and provides true ROI are vanishingly small. The current market around it is a huge bubble, but everyone's too invested to let the cat out the bag. It's the corporate equivalent of a tween trend with trillions of dollars behind it. Answer, I've seen a lot of, I use AI to automate sending emails. And just think to myself, that's been doable with macros and VBA for decades. In a few months, Alice is going to switch jobs, and whoever replaced them is going to have no idea how the code works or why. It'll be worse documentation than the crazy accountant leaves in their monster Excel files today. Story 4. If AI is a force multiplier, companies have two options. 1, reduce workforce to offset this performance gain and achieve the same amount as before with less people. 2, keep the people you have and gain more market share by leveraging the labor you already have along with the force multiplier provided by AI. It's telling that pretty much every company is choosing option 1. If it was everything people claimed it was, they would all be piling into option 2 and trying to win more of the market. Instead, it's convenient cover to reduce workforce while keeping a nice PR story. Answer, very good logic and something that hasn't been stated. Refreshing. If Big Oil would have listened to their own scientists about global warming in the 70s and 80s and invested accordingly, we would have BP Exxon solar panel farms and other renewables as commonplace. Instead, we got an inhospitable planet and easy corporate lobbying to push away science and sway public opinion. Many times a company will just sit on a technology or use it for something it's not intended. Your if statement limits what you calculate they can do. Story 5. AI engineer here, the internet, web browsing as a whole is going to fundamentally change into being AI-based. Companies are moving away from being AI-dependent. Yes, everyone spent years saying AI is coming for everyone's job and grandmother, but the pushback is real. As someone who works in AI on education and cancer research, the backlash I face is real. Answer, on the browsing point, AI companies are going to eliminate their golden goose. Every website being regurgitated by AI is one being deprived of clicks, so someone else profits from their content. It doesn't matter what their business model is, ads, subscriptions, asking for donations. Less engagement means less revenue. Over time, sites are going to start vanishing. Others are going to put up paywalls and build legal and technical traps for AI companies attempting to access them. Cloudflare already has technologies that trap AI crawlers in a maze of fake content. Perhaps a few will sign licensing agreements with AI companies to directly use their content, but that's going to require tech companies swallowing their egos and ending their era of stealing content, which means the web is slowly going to devolve into walled enclaves and AI-generated slop that poisons other AI models trying to train on it. Story 6. Most of what companies are pushing as AI is not AI. It's just automation. It's just getting systems to talk to each other and kick off processes without human intervention. Agentic AI bots are in essence just connected to FAQ documents, which look for keywords and then spit out the answers and create Zendesk tickets, which are worked on by actual people on the back end automatically. Then when it recognizes more help is needed beyond its prompts, it connects to real people to solve it. So yes, AI and automation are changing the workforce, but they aren't doing near as much as what tech companies claim they are. Story 7. For every overhyped startup promising an AI revolution, there are 1,000 white-collar people quietly using LLMs daily for basic tasks. Without much thought, they won't need to hire a junior developer or expand their admin staff or backfill the guy that retired because they can do more and do it faster. The dirty secret is that entry-level white-collar jobs are vanishing, which means universities are selling a ticket for a train that's being dismantled and the pipeline for filling future senior roles is empty. Answer: this. I have run software dev teams for 2 decades, and there was a time until recently where we had juniors who would handle the mundane elements of an assignment and submit it to the team for integration. Most of that is done using coding agents now. Are coding agents perfect? No, of course not, but they get most of the way there and require a little tweaking. Typically, this means we don't need juniors, so we don't hire them. In a decade, there won't be any new seniors because there aren't any new juniors. It's a tough spot. Story 8. It's not actual AI. It still requires prompts. It doesn't have true autonomy or self-inspired standalone operations. It relies wholly on pre-programming and external support. What we have is more akin to adaptive algorithms, which is impressive, but it's not AI. Story 9. I'm on the construction side, and a lot of the contractors building these AI data centers have no idea what they're doing. The demand is for these data centers to be built as quickly as possible, but there simply aren't enough competent general contractors in the market that can do it. So that leads to a bunch of GCs and subcontractors with no experience in data center work building these projects. That means a lot of mistakes and rework is required in the field, making these projects double or triple time more expensive to build than originally budgeted. Story 10. In the right hands, AI is a very powerful tool, not a replacement. Unfortunately, most execs and marketing folks don't want to spread or believe that. Execs want to reduce labor costs. Marketing likes to pretend AI is magic. Really grinds my gears when I see the ads for AI tools that let build an app without any programming experience. Story 11. Told her there's a 50 chance it's all bullshit. And if Silicon Valley loses the race against the economic bubble they built, it'll take the entire global economy down. Silicon Valley is best at storytelling, and they've now convinced most of the world that they're about to revolutionize everything. But they were probably 5 years too early in their launch of LLMs. LLMs are incredibly basic. They are not the AI of the future they're trying to convince everyone of. Even the head of AI at Meta compared LLMs to making a cube aerodynamic. But the output of AI is often bad, clunky. They're now in a race to build the revolutionary product they have already touted before the massive economic bubble bursts. Hell, MIT published a study this past August showing that 95 of corporate AI pilots show zero ROI. None. Because AI isn't robust and corporate leadership can't do anything except string buzzwords together, chase trends, and compete with their colleagues at other companies and conferences. Story 12. AI is not new. People act like LLMs, the things that power ChatGPT and the like, are the be-all and end-all of AI, but it's really just the first viral AI tool. AI has been critical to nearly every product and service you've used in the last 15 years. Everything uses recommendation systems and computer vision and speech recognition. LLMs are an incredible leap forward in text generation and now image generation, but those are probably 2 of the least practically useful applications of AI. AI engineering has been my full-time job since 2016, and the biggest difference since COVID is not what we can do, but how management wants us to do it. Story 13. I think it is super inefficient. They talk of wanting more data centers all over, yet we have climate change, etc. And nobody wants nuclear power. They keep taking over farmland for solar fields. Seems insane. I have a feeling this will be a fad and then explode like the dot-com bust. Story 14. It doesn't actively search all the information available on the internet before returning with an answer. It isn't active or intelligent in the ways people think. It's just an algorithm following prompts with a massive data log of past information to pick from that it tailors to fit your engagement activities. It's a massive data log that regurgitates previously logged information from dated sources. It doesn't correct itself or update the info. It just picks what it sees the most of and what it thinks you'd like to hear as an answer and serves it to you. It doesn't verify its work. It doesn't fact check. It doesn't correct the data. AI just continuously adds contradictory data to the log it picks all its answers from. This leads to false information and hallucinations that the AI presents as legitimate facts. AI is essentially the Temu of a search engine. Story 15. Change default search parameters for more accurate info, depending on the info you want. You have to give AI search parameters if you want legit info. Otherwise, it tends to use Reddit, FB, Wikipedia, etc. for a lot of the results. For example, if you're researching mushrooms, you want to specify, say that you don't want any info from Reddit, FB, Wikipedia, etc., and you only want info from mycologists, fungal biologists, plant pathologists, experts in similar fields, PhDs, published research papers, books, and the like. You'll get entirely different answers when you specify different search parameters. Story 16. It's not just a massive theft machine. The labor required to make it is also massively underpaid and takes advantage of workers in desperate situations, poor countries. When I was absolutely destitute and couldn't get a normal job due to having no ID, destroyed by a vengeful narcissist, Amazon MTurk didn't require any kind of identity verification. I spent hours doing bot training jobs for literal pennies. The highest I ever got paid for it on the absolute best training jobs on the site as $5 an hour. It's incredibly difficult work on the mind. You spend hours upon hours trying to parse infinite lines of gibberish that almost makes sense to help tune a language model, and hours outlining hundreds or thousands of bananas in a picture to train image models. Story 17. Reddit partnered with Google last year. This part isn't that much of a secret, but what most people don't realize is that everything, and I mean absolutely everything, you post here is being used to train Google's AI model. Then, said model is being used to post back on Reddit for many different purposes, through bot accounts. Then, it all gets fed back into AI, posted again, fed back, and so on. So not only you're all here arguing with bots, but you're arguing with lobotomized, brain-dead bots who are using your own regurgitated words back at you. It's kind of like playing tennis against a wall with a poorly made drawing of you taped on it. Story 18. AI companies don't make money, and most of the startups are scams to get VC and bounce. Also, just because AI can't actually do your job doesn't mean your boss won't fire you and try to replace you with it. It's not the AI convincing them, it's the salesman. Story 19. The consequence of people not hiring juniors as much due to AI being able to handle much of the grunt work that they would typically do will be absolutely devastating 10 to 15 years down the line. The old guard will retire and will suddenly have a lot of senior devs with few people to manage. When it's their turn to leave, well, answer. We're already seeing this in AI. New people are only being trained on cloud and SaaS. Everything in-house has been lumped in with mainframes and such as legacy. So we have a lot of senior people who know both, but they're going to retire at some point. I know I want to get out in 10, 12 years if I can make it that long. But anyone coming after then will have never seen a server, worked on network equipment, dealt with storage compute outside of abstracted APIs and tools. Eventually, even the deepest pocketed people will decide it's worth it to throw up their hands and hand the keys over to the cloud vendors, which I think was the point all along. Story 20. It's getting harder to train AI because so much data on the internet has been corrupted by AI. As a baseline, you need to start with data from 2022 or earlier. Also, this isn't new, but most AI is either not AI, like a normal search function, or is ChatGPT with a fake mustache. Story 21. I don't exactly work in AI, but work in IT and support our server infrastructure. My org and many others just light money on fire so MGMT can put up a site in their deck that says we use AI. It provides almost no benefit. Most users don't use it, but we spent millions to get licenses. Just because it's what MGMT thinks is hot, I can tell you from talking with others in the IT community, many companies do this. It's just wasting many millions, probably billions worldwide, on stuff we don't need. That money could have been spent to do some good. AI has a use, but unfortunately it seems companies have no fudge idea what use cases are appropriate. Story 22. It doesn't actually know whether what it's telling you is correct or not. An LLM is a text prediction engine that is really good at outputting the most likely word that will make sense to a human based on the data it has been trained on. They are very good at simulating and predicting language. But that's about it. Story 23. It's a whole lot dumber than most people think it is. It isn't even AI. It cannot think for itself and doesn't know when it's wrong. It's just a really big math equation that guesses the next word in a sentence based on the previous words it's been fed and what you're asking of it. So if the guess is wrong, it doesn't know. Yes, there's ways to make it better and prompts that can decrease that behavior, but at its core, it isn't intelligent. It's just repeating stuff. It's like a pet parrot that you've taught Shakespeare to. No one would actually think the parrot understands what it's saying, but for these models, people do think that. A lot of companies are jumping on it right now and trying to incorporate it into everything because they don't want to be left behind. But unless it gets a lot better really fast, those companies are just turning themselves into hot garbage. Story 24. I work at a big tech company in Silicon Valley that you've definitely heard of. AI isn't a smoke show, isn't a bubble, and is quite possibly undervalued in terms of the impact it might have on society. AI is quite possibly the most powerful and unique technology in the history of the Valley. We've observed that as we scale the model size and data used to train it, the performance increases to the point where it can now outperform humans on almost every benchmark of intelligence we can come up with. As a result, every company is in a prisoner's dilemma to build the most powerful AI models because the potential reward is so high. Story 25. Actually India. AI bots aren't good enough to replace most jobs yet. Tons of CEOs bought into it and promised their shareholders savings by laying off people. So to not have egg on their face when it doesn't work out, 95 of the time, the layoffs still happen and they outsource it to India or another low-wage market. Story 26. Companies advertise AI when in fact it has nothing to do with the modern vernacular of the word. I've worked for several large market tech companies, and they've all sold a product that they advertise as AI that has nothing to do with AI, LLM, NLP, deep learning, generative AI, computer vision, etc. Story 27. The ability to measure its impact and ROI within the majority of organizations is basically non-existent and a massive afterthought. Whenever Copilot pops up in Excel, Outlooks, or PowerPoint, it is being counted as if the employee actually used it. They are equating that to time being saved, therefore saved in efficiency. The numbers reported by the tools counter, Viva, is showing millions of dollars in savings in larger organizations, when in reality it isn't even close to that. Executives who spend for their organization to have AI are simply doing so that they can tell their boss that they are adapting and using AI, and they can say the same to their boss, etc. It is a solution looking for a problem. Also, 90 of the agents we build cost the company $300K for a team to implement, and it is just us hooking up a query to a knowledge source to get information they probably would have found by themselves a tad bit faster. Story 28. Mr. Job isn't going away with the current iterations, but my job has transformed so I'm less of a dev and more of an architect. My productivity has gone up 10x, but OMG is the last 5 of a project to soar due to how much more AI can hallucinate with larger contexts. Story 29. It is a fancy statistical prediction model to predict the most likely next letter. The more you converse, the larger amount the model has to use context to predict the next letter. The amount of existing context in a prompt eventually grinds things to a halt. The only answer to overcome this is more super-fast memory to store larger context. The diminishing returns are insane. Story 30. Probably not a surprise, but startups that have investors that are also invested in AI companies force all other startups, companies they are invested in, to use AI. Saw it firsthand at the previous company I was at. Feels very much like a scheme to me. Story 31. You might see some fake growth in the coming months because many companies are starting to force employees to use it, helpful or not. They're building dashboards to track individual usage and telling managers to factor it into performance reviews. Managers are also expected to review these metrics and call people out if the numbers look bad. Once this fake growth peaks and we find out we've all been swimming naked when the tide goes down, that's when the bubble pops. Story 32. Not a tech worker, I do know people at higher levels in this push. It's all a gamble. The companies are using huge amounts of borrowed money to see if they can change what it is now into a gold mine that puts them in a position to capitalize on it for the next century or more. And if the bubble pops, they file for bankruptcy and the banks are too large to fail, which means we the people get to pick up the tab. Story 33. Maybe it's known, But all of this market cap is propped up by various big techs making promises to buy services from one another. Data center builders and cloud hyperscalers are signing multi-billion-dollar contracts with OpenAI and Google. NVIDIA is signing multi-billion-dollar contracts with the hyperscalers. OpenAI is making all kinds of deals with the hyperscalers, etc. It's a giant self-perpetuating bubble with these companies just shifting money around to one another. And honestly, it's masking problems with the rest of the economy by keeping the stock market pumped up. I think that's way more important news than the typical, it costs one tree in the Amazon rainforest to let ChatGPT give you a set of curated recipes for the week kind of things you see. Not that those aren't bad, but with a rapidly retiring population who are all going to need their 401k money very soon, a massive 2008 style or 2000 style stock market crash or financial crisis is not what we need. Story 34. Energy usage required for these AI data centers. GPUs use a lot more power and need a lot more cooling. All your big tech are using shell companies to enter into secret agreements with the local government to get subsidized power. The power companies turn around and raise rates for everyone else. They also use a ton of water, sucking up local groundwater to the point that taps are running dry. Lastly, the noise. There is a constant hum around these data centers, and after a while, you cannot ignore it. It's like your entire house is on vibration mode. All this is an open secret, but not nearly enough outrage around yet another handout to corporations who make billions in profit. Story 35. I can't get better at the enterprise level until employees collect enough context to innovate on workflows and processes. Employees are using AI to deliver 8 hours of work in 3 hours and are keeping the rest to do other jobs. Because of this, the AI disruption will be slower because more complex tools need to be built first, and then it will trickle down to the corporation. Demand is there, costs are fine. What we have today is good enough for a third world country in 6 years, and they will pay the reduced fee. All this is to say, this is unavoidable. People whether train themselves to work more abstract, to be meta-capable of abstraction, or they will be replaced. It will take a decade, but the future of work was AI-enabled and is logic-based. No more busy work. Story 36. It doesn't work. It's dumb and full of mistakes. Anytime one of my coworkers use it, it has to be double-checked, and it always misses relevant info from basic tasks such as scraping data. And when it comes to actual analysis, AI is basically a dog trying to juggle. Story 37. How energy intense it is. Never mind training the models, just querying an LLM like ChatGPT takes about 10 times as much as a Google search, 0.25, 0.3 WH. That doesn't sound like that much, but considering that's per thing you write, AI is not environmentally friendly. Oh, and anything and everything you write can be accessed, used for training, saved, etc. It's not confidential. Story 38. Almost 9 of AI companies and products you see are just, under the hood, chatting with either Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini in basically the same way I would use it. It's literally the same exact thing, just with some software automation in the middle. Story 39. That it basically doesn't really work. Like, yeah, there's all kinds of novel demonstrations and surface-level examples of nominally useful stuff it can do, but integrate it into a workflow, and you quickly realize it doesn't actually do much at all and can just as easily create more problems than it solves. Story 40. Every single person at the helm is running on a mix of pseudo-religious vibes and genuinely freaky authoritarian sentiment. Yudkowsky dropped out of school at 12 and is sure AI will eliminate us in the next 5 years. Altman's stated goal for OpenAI is it owning literally everything on Earth and beyond. Yarvin, who doesn't have direct control of much but is very influential, is a big advocate of slavery and uniting all humans under the monarchical control of whoever has the most money. He was at the second Trump inauguration. Thiel's psychosis is well documented, religious extremism, and Musk is probably the most publicly known about example. Like, I can't stress enough that in a room of all the big movers and shakers of AI, someone like Musk wouldn't even crack the top 10 of the most delusional people present. Story 41. The business case for AI is cost-cutting. Nobody in the AI business comes even close to recouping any of their costs. It runs on hopes and dreams. LLMs scale horribly. A small improvement in performance needs a multiple of the hardware. LLMs will not be able to fulfill the promises. Story 42. Any enterprise customer that adopts Microsoft 365 Copilot at $30 per person per month has made the following deal proposed by Microsoft. We'll discount something else you're buying by $30 per month and give you Copilot for free. In return, we will use your company name in sales materials. If you agree to be part of the case study, we'll discount it even more. Nobody is actually paying for it, and they still can't find a measurable ROI. Story 43. That AI isn't as great as the companies make it out to be. AI, of course, will replace some jobs, but not anything close to what they have made it seem. Most AI-related layoffs are just a push for offshoring labor or reducing headcount to improve profits. Story 44. It's really good at coding. There is almost no going back to writing all the code by hand. But writing the code is usually the easiest part. The hardest part is to figure out how things should work. I can assist with that part too, but if you give AI an ambiguous problem and let it choose, then AI will make some wild shoot. So it's good as a tool, but can hardly replace humans at this point. Story 45. The costs of AI on users are being heavily subsidized because they want to normalize our usage of it in everyday life. We are the slowly boiling frog. One day in the next 10 years, those costs will stop being subsidized, and the AIs that humanity as a whole has been training collectively through that subsidy will only be available to those who can afford the true costs, which will only be the rich or large corporations, which will further the divide. Story 46. Its use to society does not offset the costs in carbon emissions, energy cost increases, massive consumption of fresh water, or monopolizing chip fabrication. For an industry that only creates debt, yes, I work in tech. Yes, I know there are multiple forms of AI. No, AI is not intelligent. Yes, I think has some uses as an enabler in some fields. No, I do not believe the current economy is at all stable. Story 47. If general AI is realized, it will never be available to the public. Core MO has always been to raise funds or capture public funds to then turn around and privatize the outcomes. This isn't news, but every futurist or tech bro who keeps saying all this BS is worth it thinking there is some kind of AGI utopia around the corner is wrong. If one of them managed to create actual AGI, they won't tell anyone. They will just use it to take over the competition, businesses, governments, and the world. Story 48. Artificial intelligence is a misnomer. It's not intelligence, and anything you see online saying how models think is just a fun metaphor. It's better described as computationally probability or numerical statistics. It uses a very large data set to create a model, then gives responses that are very likely to be correct based on the probability assumptions on which the model was made. What it spits out is likely correct, but it's physically impossible for it to be 100% certain. With this in mind, machine learning AI models are not the answer to everything and will not take over all aspects of our world. The bubble will pop in the coming months or years. They are, however, another tool in our toolkit, and it'll be used alongside all our other tools in the future. Story 49. Companies are in the mode of information gathering. Notice all the terms of agreements changing. They want to normalize and avoid copyright issues. Remember Reddit sold its soul? This is just the starting phase, similar to what Facebook was doing in the early mid-2000s. AI needs current info to stay relevant. Sounds obvious, but it's a new type of gathering. Microsoft wanted to collect screenshots of everyone's work. Got shut down temporarily, but every single thing we do is being collected without fear of copyright issues and/or privacy policies. Story 50. AI is going to drive a massive boom in renewables and nuclear. Data center demand will be a major reason the grid shifts toward clean energy faster than anything we've seen in decades. The benefits will take time, but over the next 10 years, they'll become clear. This is exactly what every hyperscaler is working toward right now. Companies don't spend tens of billions of dollars on infrastructure without a clear economic reason. This isn't ideological, it's strategic. Story 51. The vast majority of it, and I mean a good 90, is useless. Garbage, the remaining 10 isn't big enough to justify the current investment costs. This is the biggest oversupply I've ever seen for technology that's already maxed out. We recently had a How to Use AI course that actively put entire departments off using AI rather than getting them to use it because they felt just hiring someone who knew what they were doing was the cheaper and faster option. Story 52. It's basically the overseas outsourcing all over again, except the overseas is other people's comments, conversations, easily assimilated data, digested by association algorithms, and excreted without regard to context. Doing the needful is going to really suck. Story 53. A couple years ago, I was in a research project with one of the top experts in the area. My takeaway was, this whole AI thing is essentially an alpha state right now. Very few people understand what it does and how, and the fields is constantly shifting. It's very far from a mature technology. We'll still be seeing fundamental changes before the dust settles. Story 54. So many. Generative AI for public facing is a huge fad, the NFTs of 2025. It's certainly not the future for consumers, though it does have some uses in tech, medicine, etc. Everything in most generative AI systems is stolen, copyrighted material. So unless you think that stealing from artists, creatives, writers, etc. is okay, you shouldn't use it. If AI ever actually took off, highly unlikely, it would significantly hurt the environment, lead to much higher utility bills and the like. If you care about the environment at all, you shouldn't use it. Even if you could stop it from making up an answer out of thin air, it will never be able to discern fact from fiction. If you care about getting a correct answer, you shouldn't use it. TLDR, tech companies are jumping at the shiny new thing, but it has no future outside of very niche situations, especially if you have any moral compass. Story 55. I think the dirtiest thing I've personally witnessed working in AI is that a lot more PII slips through the cracks than you might expect. And this is because people outside of AI are a lot worse at handling it than you might expect, even with the news the way it is. Story 56. A big part of those terrible results you get are largely fixed by A, using prompts written by a professional, and B, limiting the use case so you know what your expected inputs and outputs should look like, and C, using the more powerful paywalled models. Yes, hallucinations are still real and still a concern, but there are also whole departments and whole companies devoted to detecting and reprompting for them. If you know your model, prompt, and use case is susceptible to a certain kind of hallucination, you can often write good old-fashioned software to detect it or run the same data with 2 or more prompts or on 2 or more models that are unlikely to hallucinate the same way. Everyone will tell you that no one is making money off AI, but for every company saying they're going to replace 50 of the workforce, there are 10 quietly improving some niche industry efficiency by 5 to 10 and seeing real improvements. Story 57. 2 things can be true-ish at once. AI industry is 100 a massive speculative bubble similar to the .com bubble, but even bigger in scale. It will crash painfully. A lot of people will lose jobs and money, and sadly enough, a lot of those people will have had nothing to do with it. The AI technologies are capable, add value, and are getting better and won't be going away, and you would be wise to familiarize yourself with them now while it's cheap to do so. They won't replace workers immediately, but over a decade, they will fundamentally transform how things work and will threaten job security in nearly every industry over time, but likely more like how internet access changed how jobs are given and done and created. Story 58. A lot of the simple agentic AI stuff really does have the potential to impact a lot of jobs. A single SME with a good workflow tooling and the right connections to data and eliminate a huge amount of processes that are typically done by people. I think a lot of this is hidden from the general public that think all AI is ChatGPT and pictures with 4 thumbs. The more dangerous part is someone can work a few hours on a new agent and potentially eliminate a few jobs. Rinse and repeat. Story 59. That while everyday users are griping about AI mandates and complaining that the LLM is too stupid, there is already a large and rapidly growing set of validated use cases where agentic AI is successfully able to replace human work on real data. It's now an inevitable question of deployment and business transformation, i.e., the challenge of restructuring your company after firing all those people. Story 60. ITT, an echo chamber of people who dislike AI but don't actually know anything more than the general public. Is AI bad for the environment? Yes. Can it hallucinate and provide inaccurate results? Yes. Is it extremely expensive to maintain? Yes. But this is how most new technology starts. It's only been 3 years since the public release of ChatGPT. Don't get me wrong, I dislike that AI is being shoved down our throats, and there are certainly people who overhype it, but there's no denying that it will have profound impact on our future. It's not a nothing burger. Story 61. Long-term AI will mostly be used for adult content. In the 90s, we all thought the information age was going to mean everyone is finally going to be smart with unlimited access to information. No more begging someone to teach you something, which now you can look up on YouTube to learn. We now have a population today that is as stupid, if not more than the general population in the 90s. But on the adult content front, it seems like we have advanced way beyond the Playboy magazines. Story 62. Not necessarily a secret at all, but you should adhere to warnings and hints like humans review some saved chats to improve AI and to not share identifiable info. There is a fair chance that non-temporary chats will be seen by random outsourced freelancers. Story 63. 90 of what's needed to be done by OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, etc. for a business can be done better using free and less demanding open source models. I say free because businesses are currently paying for the convenience of not having to implement their own solution. A significant amount of what's required by businesses can be done using consumer to moderate level hardware. An example case I had just yesterday was a small 2GB model consistently outperforming OpenAI's GPT-4o when selecting the correct tool to call as part of an agentic workflow. Everything is use case specific. You're paying so that you don't have to find and design the workflow for the 2GB model, rather to just dump everything into GPT-4o and get an acceptable result while requiring a small town's worth of resources. Also, the fear of Chinese models. I regularly have to walk back solutions because of the fear of locally deployed QuanDeepSeek models from sea levels. They are fantastic models with hidden backdoors being virtually impossible, i.e. requiring an entirely new and unseen attack vector that somehow has gone unnoticed by the community examining their code. Story 64. Marketing and advertising are going to get absolutely eaten alive by AI, but in-house teams at big tech companies and the agencies attached to them refuse to believe it. Thing of it is, the decision makers above them are frothing at the mouth to implement it, and those teams will get decimated. Source: worked in advertising and big tech, got reprimanded 2 years ago for bringing up our lack of preparation to embrace and build around it. Big idea people like me don't last long because it's more important that people maintain the status quo. So now I build tools to usher in that transition to AI in advertising. Not my problem these teams aren't ready for tech that will so easily remove their jobs. Story 65. Everyone is fairly aware the only way to make money off these products is to displace workers. It can be marketed as empowering the user, but it is really about empowering a user so that he can do the work of 5. Companies have no idea how to recoup cost on usage alone, eat token consumption. Math doesn't math. So the reward function for current AI is absolutely to replace workers. Story 66. Pervasive AI is already upon us, but 99.9% of these applications are going to be less efficient, effective, and usable than regular programs. It's not that AI isn't developed enough or that it won't be soon. It never will be. There's never going to be a learning algorithm better or faster than a Bash one-liner, and you can do some amazing things with a single line of Bash. Story 67. I think if there were more people using Opus 4.5 with tooling for software development, there would be a lot less people confidently saying it's hype that can't replace people. It's one thing to read about protein folding and feel like that's a big deal but not really grasp it. It's another when AI, in whatever form, creates powerful tools for your job and completely transforms it and makes you way, way more productive. Then you see what's up and can imagine its effects spreading through everything. Story 68. Here's my take. There's a massively oversized bet that the success AI has shown in code generation and accelerating development can be replicated across many other domains, including robotics. If it pays out, things will be very different. If it fails, we'll finally have this stagflation recession that's been looming since COVID. Story 69. AI is a marketing term. It's just big data with big processing. Large amounts of data that are used for so-called training. The AI is not pure, for example. It has racism prejudice in the data set and completely untrue information. AI can daydream, which means it produces false results that look real because of aforementioned bad data, bad extrapolation, and bad programming. There is absolutely nothing new in AI, just the improvement of hardware to deal with massive amounts of information. It's evolutionary and not revolutionary as they want you to believe. It's just another tool and can produce good results when highly supervised by a real person. Story 70. Commenting to revisit this thread in a year or two. Why would every major company be running headlong into this? One major reason. It's going to be massively transformative to people's own efficiency, SaaS, entertainment, make a 30-minute cartoon from your kid's imagination, and more. And because the American government sees fit to privatize things, we are privatizing the biggest investment in economic infrastructure ever seen on the planet. Our dumbass government is willingly privatizing the economic value of the freeway system, fiber optic investment, and railroads all in one. Trillions will be going to these companies. If you don't see it, then you haven't stopped to imagine the possibilities. Other smart countries guaranteeing access to healthcare and internet access are building sovereign AI, not America. We need to build shareholder value. This is the purpose of the Project Genesis by these companies. Story 71. I think the biggest thing I've noticed is really how theoretically pervasive it is compared to how functionally pervasive it is. It's talked about constantly but utilized sparingly. Also, as someone else mentioned, it takes people to make AI work. It is still very much in its infancy in the corporate tech world. Story 72. There are real projects replacing real people right now that do the job better than those people they are replacing. The publicly available tech that is inconsistent at best, being used by people without knowing the constraints, is not equivalent to what's going on behind closed doors. Story 73. I feel this isn't a secret, but it needs reiterating again and again. AI doesn't understand anything, it just guesses. Sure, they can be good guesses, so good it seems like they understand, but they don't. And there's a likelihood that they never will. Story 74. Most of what the public uses is more or less glamorizing a search and recommendation engine and slapping a price tag on it. Actual AI is barely being used because there are few justifiable reasons for companies to purchase it, so big tech is trying to create the problem only they have the solution for. They're trying to make AI the only tool you'll ever need and can save companies a ton of money. But it can't. You still need highly skilled humans in the loop to ensure it doesn't go off the rails and cause serious harm. They keep trying to push this as a solution in the medical field, and while it is helpful querying millions of rows of data asynchronously, it's non-deterministic, therefore what is returning may or may not be right. So it needs a highly skilled person in the loop to verify its results. Story 74. Actual tech worker here at a hyperscaler. The AI that everyone uses today is just scratching the surface. The massive investments being made in physical infrastructure are barely going live. And real AI will start getting deployed to the public in the next 36 months. AI is very useful, but for the uses the majority of the population are using it for. Story 76. It's becoming prolific. I see it being used everywhere. There are entire groups now figuring out how to use machine learning and neural networks to improve performance. I feel like it will become another skill everyone needs to know in the future. Newer grads will already have an understanding of it since they used it in college. Story 77. How useful AI can be all depends on trust. We give it. Uber works because we have to trust that Uber can trust its drivers. Airlines work because we trust that they can trust their planes, etc. Despite a few incidents that are usually standard variances, the product's success depends largely on whether we want to allow it to work for us. AI concept is still at the phase where people are looking for reasons not to trust it. It'll never be what it'll be until we get past this hurdle and embrace it despite its variances. LLM is sort of there as I already use it to write emails, and I'm sure my reader uses it to summarize for them. LOL, so we've already given into it. Story 78, used properly. AI is actually a pretty great tool and enables some pretty amazing toolset augmentations. Supplemental. I feel like the sexy and scary ways everyone is so up in arms about are, for the most part, the things that AI is the least good at. Story 79. You would think the best and brightest would be employed at every level, but they're really trying to get away with the best bang for buck to the lowest bidder. I build data centers, and I had a help desk job for 3 months I was fired from before getting this job. I had major imposter syndrome, but slowly started to realize the people they were hiring after me were literally picked up off the street. Car mechanic, line cook, dog walker. Can you use a drill? You're hired. Turns out they just broke the job in half to save money. Instead of hiring one person on a 6-figure salary to build and configure their network environments, they pay physical port monkeys, me, to build out the physical network. And I give remote access to my computer to some guy in a foreign country where they can outsource network configuration work for pennies on the dollar. It takes longer, and if I don't have Wi-Fi or a cellular signal, it's fudge. If a seasoned network engineer saw how inefficient our process was, many technicians on both sides are often inexperienced, they'd blow a gasket. But corporations don't care if the work is done quickly by qualified professionals. What's important is, can it be done well enough and can it be done inexpensively? Story 80. Companies will only use AI if it reduces the human salary bill. I think we are going to see something interesting when AI costs more than the people it replaces. All the claims of efficiency are valid until it's not. There is going to be a reckoning line somewhere. If you are spending billions on infrastructure, what is the churn rate of that infrastructure? An AI chip is only as good until there is something better. And at the rate we are going now, I don't see a piece of physical hardware going more than a year until it's obsolete. Insert DeepSeek type scenario. Story 81. Not exactly AI, but there is no benefit to offshoring apart from corporate greed Many offshore outsourcing companies are the ones delivering major AI projects. Not only is labor expertise lost in the local market, the financial incentive for local talent is also removed. It is damaging to local economies as huge contracts in both public and private are outsourced to offshore parent companies, leading to untaxed revenue and reinvestment in the buyer's region. Income tax is indirectly lost in the local economies, as the job market is impacted by not selecting or hiring locally. I have worked for the GSIs that deliver the outsourcing contracts. The offshore colleagues often work well beyond their contracted hours. Despite having IP protection in contracts, a company's IP is most always stolen and repackaged as proposals for other clients. Knowledge and ownership is rapidly lost within buyer's organization, increasing future dependency on the offshore body, reducing accountability throughout the chain. If you want public examples of why offshoring is becoming more damaging to businesses, their economies, look at how TCS handled the scattered spider attacks, and then look at who owns Jaguar Land Rover. Story 82. Shouldn't be a secret by now. Everyone should know this. At Tesla Vision AI, we saw everything. From the selfie cam in your car, to you naked doing laundry in your garage because of Sentry Mode. I've seen people rail in lines of blow. People getting BGs, kids driving. It's crazy. I don't work there anymore. Was laid off along with 300 others in 2022. Story 83. Just my opinions. 1, AI is being used to disguise some layoffs. If you have a team of 10 doing 110 of what they did 6 years ago, then you need only 9 and not 10. And you can sell it to the public as AI is changing how business is being run and not a business is cutting workforce. 2, power utilities are going to have to choose who gets power, the residential area, or the AI data center that can pay a premium for power. It's not like the utilities have a remote switch. Oh, at least in my state they do. 3, while the economy has been and still is in a recession, in tech, it's a depression. If I lose my job, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have an easier time starting a handmade craft company than find another job for the work I've been doing for the last 20 years. I think Microsoft will add Recall, the screen capture program, into Copilot for Business and start having OCR done on the screen. This will be useful to companies as they can start adding better automation. Notes and tickets will be analyzed and automation refined, e.g., a ticket that was worked on can be then broken down to automated tasks, approval required tasks, and human tasks, with the goal being to remove as much human tasks. I think of it this way. Any repetitive task will be automated. Every automated task will have an AI agent assigned to monitor it. There will probably be 100 AI agents assigned to one human for QA/QC. I don't think this will apply to C-suite, not because AI couldn't do their job, but you can't depose AI CEO like you can with a human CEO. All things change. Not all change is good. I can see AI being used for some good. I'd like another season of this show. AI, here's your sriracha, or please wait while that's being made for you. Or asking AI to take a book or radio show and turn it into a movie or miniseries. Or helping someone to understand the same concept in a book they are having trouble with. Say Dante's Inferno, and AI would translate that into something they do understand. Say the Terminator films 1 and 2. But there's going to be a lot of bad. They will crank it out like a massive Xerox machine, making 1,000 copies of a 100-page report at a time. And that machine will be cranked to 11. Remember, this is all from my tiny view on the matter. TLDR, rolling blackouts, layoffs, and depression. Story 84. LLMs are just text generators. It is not that the models achieved an almost human level of intelligence. They are simply capable of generating text that convinces us enough. This is very different. TBH, that's not a secret, but everybody seems to miss that. Story 85. The one thing I would want AI to do is to find the contact information of people that I recruit. It can't do that. The peripheral odds and ends I use it for, using it as a soundboard for emails I've created, etc., is probably worth no more than $5 a month at this point. Story 86. No one really knows how to use AI. It's all FOMO. We are pressed to use it in our day-to-day roles, but it's all experimentation and play, which is fine but doesn't necessarily justify the expense. Besides, who has the time to meet deadlines and reinvent how they work at the same time? Higher-ups then think we don't need any additional help, people, since they've given us Copilot. The result is an overworked, burnt-out workforce that is increasingly slinging AI slop back and forth that requires a ton of rework. Story 87. ITT people too low on the totem pole to know what's what, and parroting the CEOs are dumb, AI tech is bad, feel good story. Actual CEOs know the real dirty secret. AI is good enough now that strategy and analysis jobs are disappearing quickly because the AI is better than most workers. Story 88. About 12 dozen men are deciding the fate of human society. None of them were elected. Recognize that for AI to be the thing you want, it both has to work and has to be 100 controllable. It is neither of those things, and these men are more interested in getting it done than getting it done right. One admitted that if there was a 20 chance that it would completely wipe out humanity, but an 80 chance of utopia, he'd still do it because it's inevitable, and he'd rather he be in control than someone else. And neither the government or anyone else is stopping them. Think about it. Story 89. The general public thinks the tech industry is about producing new and exciting tech, but really startups just pretend existing tech is new, promise it will disrupt some industry, burn through venture capital, and get bought out by large tech companies. Large tech companies make money by selling data and renting out cloud compute, so they're happy to buy startups to eliminate them and prevent them from competing. Because all of those activities require minimal tech skills, an astounding number of managers in the industry are basically tech illiterate, especially when it comes to new tech. When those managers push for AI adoption, they do so under the belief that everything AI advertisements have stated is 100 accurate. And in this economy, if you're an actual expert in the tech, you keep your head down so you can keep your job. Story 90. Sure, the statement that skills and experience don't disappear just because someone lost their job, taken by itself, is obviously literally true. But since I didn't say anything that contradicted that literal point, I assumed you were implying that the potential loss of skills and experience in the workforce would not be a substantial issue in bringing back a human workforce, as that would be a relevant response to the initial comment. If you did just mean to point out that being laid off doesn't inherently cause an immediate loss of skills and experience per se, then I can't argue with that. No one would. But I don't know why one would do that in response to my original comment. Additionally, even in your recap, you equate losing skills and experience with workers forgetting everything they ever learned. Those aren't really the same, aren't they? You also cleverly replaced the term I used multiple years with several years in the recap. Story 91. Foundational LLMs have essentially hit a plateau. There is plenty of new uses for them that haven't been explored in other potential AI technologies that are evolving, but the core set of GPT-based LLMs has effectively crossed a point of diminishing returns. Adding more data to the training won't help much, as most of the remaining data is either poor quality or increasingly niche. If the model has already cataloged all of the scholarly literature on psychology and the full content of Reddit and social media to get popular social context, adding a bunch of older research, blogs, small-scale forums, or niche study data isn't going to make a noticeable improvement for most situations. We're also running into an issue where preventing AI training from ingesting AI content is getting harder. Adding more tokens won't help much because the current LLMs are based on conversations and user-generated content, and the current token limits are likely already exceeding what an average person can handle as context. It's kind of like take a system that can understand a 1,000-page novel and improve it to understand a 3,000-page novel. It's a neat technical feature, but there aren't really any relevant 3,000-page novels to understand. Techniques that complement LLMs, like MCP, Reggae, prompt stuffing, are going to be the future, and those often take more specialized implementation to build. The good news is that Gen AI tools can be a lot better than the crappy chatbots that are everywhere. The bad news is that the AI industry is betting on 2 or 3 more generations of huge improvements in foundational models that are likely just not possible with GPT-based models. Story 92. Most companies don't have enough clean and machine-comparable data to realize the investments and hopes of AI. And no exec is willing to openly admit to and pursue the needed 100M investments to make the troves of data companies are sitting on useful to AI. Story 93. The dirty secret is that even the engineers building these models often don't know why they work. We aren't coding logic anymore. We're just tweaking weights and parameters until the output looks right. It's less like computer science and more like alchemy. If a model starts acting weird, we often can't debug it. We just have to retrain it and pray. Story 94. The heavy water usage of data centers is entirely optional. They just use water cooling on the computers instead of fans like a regular PC. They could switch to fans and not use so much clean water, but it costs slightly more, and no city charges very much for the clean water. Story 95. Pretend like you had an assistant whose job it is to answer your questions. When you ask them a question, They go to Google and inquire, and then they read through all of the results, maybe filter some obvious bullshit, and then provide you with a summary of their findings. That's all AI is right now. It can save an absolute mountain of time if it's used properly, or it can cause a lot of confusion and conflict if it's used recklessly or selfishly, which means it's only a matter of time before people start using it recklessly and selfishly. Wait, you mean people are already abusing it? Who knew? Story 96. Not really a secret, just a thought. Everyone is saying that AI isn't perfect, it won't work because it's not always correct, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? No one cares if it's perfect. Not the companies that provide the service or the companies that consume it. It just needs to be as good as a human. The goal is replacement, not perfection. Story 97. Several posts in this thread are about AI's inability to functionally replace human workers. My post is directed at those commenter. Just because AI can't actually replace you effectively doesn't mean your employer won't try. It just means you'll get to chuckle bitter about their failure sometime in the future, then get back to your 6-month job search. Story 98. The entire current fad is based on throwing a rigorous level of computing power at models that were formulated in the 2010s because the initial breakthroughs were convincing enough to have billions in capital invested into data centers that require ridiculous amounts of electricity to power the training loops for these models. And now that the improvements per version are starting to plateau, there's a lot of forced integration to recoup some of the investment. Story 99. AI is not really programmed. Programmers are not making direct choices about how the AI ends up behaving at all. We can tune hyperparameters that influence how it's trained, choose different training data to train off of, and restructure the neural net architecture, which allows for picking up different kinds of patterns in the underlying data. But that's literally all the control we have. The rest is completely just the AI looking at the data and extracting patterns that it finds itself using multi-parameter optimization theory that was invented like 400 years ago. I'm saying this because I've seen AI behavior blamed on the people who programmed it. Nope, we didn't do that. In fact, if you wanted an example of programmers trying to control AI behavior directly, look at the guardrails for things like censorship in models and how easily it's defeated, bypassed. In those cases, test data is being very carefully chosen or filtered, often censored. There are sometimes explicit programmatic filters, and it still doesn't do what the programmers want a lot of the time and is really easy to circumvent. Story 100. I'm not a tech worker, but this whole thing is a tunnel. Look it up. It's a Czech invention. It's the clearest scheme to ever exist. Have you noticed that nobody wants AI? Nobody buys AI? Heck, most of these companies don't even sell anything. Any company that has use for AI is creating their own. None of it works flawlessly. It's a scheme to get money and land deals from the president. It's all a play, and we will be paying for it for decades to come. Story 101. Like 90 of AI's projects fail to provide value. And the thing that people don't really realize is the extent of change needed to make AI useful beyond using ChatGPT or task-specific things like benching, mediocre, or bad code. Most companies cannot change enough. Their workforce isn't technical enough, and a 9 of senior leaders change averse, and thus terrible change leaders. New companies can just avoid legacy systems and build their enterprise architectures for token optimization and avoid hiring people that can't work as data custodians on their domain. The new companies that are built around this have a very good shot at outcompeting even big companies. Story 102. I'm inventing human life orchestration, where I can predict people's lives on a calendar, the societal implications of 247 AI that can see everything you do will fundamentally change what it means to be human. It's the same as hunter-gatherers in agriculture. Before electricity, before the internet now, before seeing AI 247 AI. Story 103. Don't need to be a tech worker. Stealing art used to be a crime. It was called copyright infringement or something like that. Stealing art, people's faces. It just happened on such a massive scale and so incredibly quickly that nobody could do anything about it. The epitome of they can't stop us because there's too many of us. The entire AI data set is trained on literal theft. What are all of these little artists supposed to do? Sue with what money? And now it's too late anyway. Story 104. It's a lot of hype, a lot of smoke mirrors. Its outputs are skewed by a socialization algorithm to subtly encourage cultural assimilation, economic productivity. So there's massive incentive to get people to use it. That's not to say it's useless. It's just insidious, and it's deliberately constructed to be difficult to identify when this line is crossed. Story 105. that there is no thinking behind it. It's just guessing most probably words on content it's been trained on. It literally doesn't even understand the word cat. It just understands it goes often with words eat and mice. But LLMs like GPT have zero understanding what any of those is. Story 106. There are tons of very useful work where applications call OpenAI, Claude, and similar LLM models via API. These are profitable for OpenAI and others. While training does cost a lot of money and is a big investment, the API usage makes money. The technology is here to stay, and it is making good business in a lot of companies. This being said, especially OpenAI is in huge debt in their investments, and it's quite likely it will be a failure of some sort, and there will be many companies in a huge hungover in a few years. But still, the technology is here to stay, and it's good business for many, but not for all companies. Story 107. I ran a bunch of the comments through ChatGPT. Concise summary: AI governance is the elephant in the room. Many companies actively avoid evaluating or disclosing AI risk. Vendors often panic or push back when asked about risk, including in high-stakes sectors like healthcare. Most AI initiatives fail to deliver value. Roughly 90 don't succeed because real impact requires deep organizational change, not just adding ChatGPT or automating narrow tasks. Legacy systems, low technical fluency, and senior leaders who resist change are the biggest blockers. New AI-native companies have an advantage. Startups that avoid legacy tech, design architectures optimized for tokens data flows, and hire true data stewards can outcompete large incumbents. Your data is already training AI. Anything posted publicly online can and will be used to train models with little practical recourse. Artificial intelligence is a misleading term. AI is an intelligence or thinking it's large-scale statistical pattern matching. Outputs are probabilistically likely, never certain. The AI hype will cool, but the tool remains. AI won't replace everything or everyone, but it will persist as a powerful tool, especially for coding. There's no going back. Humans are still essential. Writing code is easy. Designing how systems should work is hard. I can help, but when given ambiguous problems, it can produce confidently wrong or nonsensical outcomes. Bottom line, AI is powerful but fragile without governance, clear problem definition, and real change leadership. It creates more risk than value. Story 108. B2B software, making all-out marketing and be about our AI-based product capabilities. Didn't really do much of anything for sales in help close any deals. It's expected we have this. Nobody cares. Buyers still have complex business problems to solve. I is the extra stuff, but not the solution. Story 109. In 25, people are very upset that models are being trained with data they freely put up on all the various social media sites. But the truth is, researchers have been creating training sets using publicly available data since the 90s. It's too late to meanie about it now. Story 110. Social media platforms reduce their human safety and moderation teams in favor of AI. Meta, YouTube, TikTok, Roblox, and others are facing major backlash by their users, often with them receiving false positive violations or missing clear violations. Meta alone is now slammed with 1,000s of small claims in the U.S. court system. Since it's the only way to get real human support, aka their legal team has become their user support team. Story 111. AWS and Cisco are directly meeting with state governments to get them in on their AI system solutions. The AI solutions would be much cheaper to just hire someone to create in-house. But AWS and Cisco are already so intertwined with government that this is almost never done and leads to hundreds of millions, if not multiple billions of tax dollars going to waste every year per state on unused services, simple services. By simple solutions, I mean virtual private encrypted servers. They will manage for you that holds your government information in databases with AI chatbots you can utilize to parse that information quickly. You get charged for queries though. You also get your own AWS rep. That is it. Cost is around $320K a month at base level. It can hit upwards of $1 million a month. Depends on what add-ons you get. None of it is crazy. It would be astronomically cheaper to hire a small team to build out this and maintenance. The people in charge are not capable of forming these thought processes or open to this idea as they are used to just kind of spending when needed because money is there to be spent. It's actually fudge crazy. The only thing I can say is your data will for sure be kept forever, which is good and bad, but we'll say it's positive for right now. Most of these solutions are also paid for and then never used because they need people who understand how to implement integrate them into current systems. Most state governments do not have anybody specializing in this at all for this to be performed. The ones that do are outsourcing that work back to AWS Cisco through local AWS Cisco reps. This happens with many other basic government systems and projects on a smaller scale as well, especially places that are allotted funds from the state government to directly assist the public. There are companies selling custom versions of Excel for $20K and bundle it with support for $2K a month, and it's dead ass a team of 15 people with 8 of them being call center reps. This is happening all day, every day. It's 90 being tech illiterate with no oversight. People don't care when it's not their money, and they also get paid out of that money. Story 112. Few software developers actually understand AI very well. My husband and I belong to a local professional group, and we were all assigned to read a paper about AI and discuss it. None of us really felt confident that we understood. We all just use it and hope it works out. My company just made this big announcement that they're an AI-first company, trying to look cool, hiring a whole AI team. We'll see. Story 113. AI used for very specific things is fantastic. So training an AI to mimic a certain art style and then using that AI to translate an image from real to stylized works well. Corridor Digital did this. Or having them scan through hundreds of MRI slices to ID cancer and abnormalities. Check for defects on machine parts. All really good uses. But using them for office messages or to replace anyone doing something dynamic, they fall flat. The way people are starting to use AI is rather than a general purpose bot, they're building them for specific things in office as well. So yay, all these big AI blah 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 promising to deliver EDI or Cortana like we see in Mass Effect or Halo. They're at best lying, at worst they're lying and wasting billions on hardware software. Story 114. It's already plateauing. Its use case looks like it's going to be quite effective at unskilled communication, LA call centers. It is decidedly not as good as actual people on the job, but at pennies for the thousands of quid per seat, it's going to decimate that industry. Same with the arts and generative AI. Most others' jobs are safer than the AI dick riders would have you believe. Story 115. The value of AI isn't about generative text, images, or video. To a lesser degree, it's not about job displacement either. Nope, its real value lies in consuming all the internet data.